welcome to Infinity News. Hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment. Today we're taking a deep dive into some really significant events.
We are. We've got material detailing what sounds like major immigration enforcement operations recently in Los Angeles.
Yeah, involving agencies like ICE, ATF, DHS, FBI, LAPD too, apparently, across downtown LA and even places like Torrance.
Exactly. And what jumps out is the contrast, the actions taken by the agencies and then this really strong community reaction described.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack that. What happened, where, the specific incidents described, and that community response. We're pulling out the key details from what we've seen.
And it gets pretty intense. The material uses language like war zone to describe the scene downtown.
Oh, war zone. That's strong.
It is. And it mentions agents in camoed fatigues with guns out, described as militarized.
Okay, so let's break down the locations. Where did this happen? One place mentioned really stood out to me.
You mean the courthouse, the Roybal Federal Building?
Yeah. The material describes agents?
Yeah.
What?
Waiting outside. Outside, yes, like in the bushes, but also, remarkably, inside the courtroom.
Wait, inside the court, while proceedings are happening?
That's what the account states. Waiting for immigrants who were there for, lawful court processes.
And then what?
They were detained immediately, taken to the basement, interrogated, and decisions on deportation made right there. The account even says this happened regardless of their status.
Regardless of status. Wow. So people just trying to follow the legal process.
That's the picture painted here. It really raises questions about trust in the system if that's happening.
Absolutely. Where else?
Well, then there were places like Home Depot parking lots.
Oh, where day laborers might gather.
Precisely. People described as just wanted to work, hoping to get a job for the day.
So targeting informal work sites too. And businesses.
Yes, raids at multiple Ambience apparel locations, factories, a showroom, places described as having immigrants hard at work contributing to Los Angeles and to our economy.
Okay, so a real mix of locations. How did people react as this was going on?
The description is vivid. People were pissed off. They were not having it, letting the agencies know it wasn't okay.
Just shouting. Or more?
Oh, much more. Active resistance. The material suggests the agents might have been surprised by the level of it.
What did that look like?
People actually surrounding these vehicles leaving, trying to keep them from driving away. There were scuffles, physical confrontations described.
Things got physical.
Yes. And there's mention of tear gas and what looks like fireworks being used by the crowd as agents left.
This sounds incredibly volatile. Were there specific incidents of violence highlighted?
There were. The accounts mention agents getting very violent, not just with protesters, but even with people just observing or trying to inform immigrants of their rights.
And there was that incident involving the union president.
Right. David Huerta, president of SEIU California. The material says he was injured and detained by ICE agents during a raid.
What was he doing there?
According to the account, simply exercising his First Amendment right to observe and document. It notes he needed medical attention while in custody.
And SEIU responded strongly.
They did, called for his release, praised his righteous participation, and condemned the raids themselves, calling them cruel, destructive, and indiscriminate.
How do they frame the impact?
Said the raids were tearing apart our communities, disrupting our economy, and hurting all working people. They really emphasized the essential role of immigrant workers.
Okay, and Senator Alex Padilla also weighed in.
Yes, his statement, as reported, called the raids part of a disturbing pattern of extreme and cruel enforcement nationally. He described them as indiscriminate.
Did his statement mention motivation?
It did. According to the quote provided, he stated the administration aimed to instill harm and fear to drive immigrants into the shadows, but asserted it will not work. He stressed immigrants are valued members of communities and called for accountability. Again, we're just relaying the perspectives presented in the material.
Understood. Going back to the street clashes, there was a particularly alarming detail.
You mean the agent pulling a gun?
Yes.
Yeah, the information notes that happened during a scuffle, an agent actually pulled his gun out, really highlights the potential danger.
And LAPD's role in all this, they were there for crowd control.
Primarily crowd control, yes, but they were seen working directly with ICE agents and ATF. You could hear people in the crowd asking, why are you collaborating with ICE?
How was their involvement described or interpreted in the material?
Well, one perspective included was quite critical, claiming LAPD used local knowledge to help IC attack people, calling it disgusting. It also mentioned LAPD setting up skirmish lines and noted it's unusual for them to be involved in these federal raids.
So raising questions about local versus federal roles and the vans leaving with detained people.
That scene was described as deeply troubling.
Yeah.
Protesters were trying to physically block the vans.
Leading to more confrontations.
Exactly. A large scuffle broke out when people tried to block one van. Agents were described as physically fighting protesters. One person was apparently tossed to the ground and handcuffed.
Any injuries there?
The fire department did arrive, reportedly for medical use, for the person taken into custody after that fight.
Okay, so incredibly intense scenes in downtown LA, but this wasn't just downtown, right?
No, the material indicates similar things were happening in the greater LA proper area. Torrance was specifically mentioned.
And the Torrance story is just awful.
It really is. A 9-year-old boy, Martia Garcia Lura, detained by IC with plans reported to deport him to Honduras.
A 9-year-old.
Yeah, caused huge outrage. Teachers, PTA trying to find out where he was. It was confirmed he was taken into detention. The material calls it really sick stuff.
And this connects to a wider picture.
It seems so. The information notes these kinds of raids are reported across the country, mentioning places like San Diego, Memphis, Florida. So LA fits into a broader pattern described.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot. The courthouse, the factories, the parking lots, the intense street resistance, the injuries, the arrest of an observer, the detention of a child.
It's a complex picture. The material really lays out these described enforcement tactics, the visible agency presence, the wide range of targets.
And that incredible pushback from the community. People willing to risk a lot, physically confronting agents, trying to block vans.
Definitely. And you have those statements from a CIU and Senator Padilla offering these strong perspectives, framing the whole debate around immigrant rights and economic contributions versus enforcement actions perceived as harsh.
The specific stories, the child, Martier or David Huerta, being injured while observing, they really bring home the human impact described in these accounts, don't they?
They absolutely do. It moves beyond policy to individual lives affected.
So we've seen the intensity, the locations, the resistance, the different viewpoints, the personal costs laid out in the material. It describes this real clash, enforcement versus community, physical confrontations, and this whole debate about immigration's role.
A very challenging situation described with significant human consequences.
So here's a final thought. Drawing from all this, we hear about intense community resistance, people taking real personal risks, and we also hear about a 9-year-old child being detained. Taken together, what does this combination, as presented in these accounts, suggest about where things are heading with immigration enforcement, and maybe the lengths people on all sides are willing to go?
It definitely points to potentially escalating dynamics based on what's reported here. Something to think about.
Absolutely. Keep pondering those dynamics. Maybe check out more information based on what we've discussed. Thanks for tuning in to Infinity News. Hit subscribe, like, and comment.